Hello dear students, welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy, the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. So today we have a few important news articles. We'll try and understand all those important news articles one by one. And if I can provide you a brief summary of all those important news articles that we are going to discuss. First and foremost, we will understand the Nilgiri Tar and the threats that Nilgiri Tar has been facing in the Western Ghats. In fact, the Nilgiri Tar is an endemic species located in the Western Ghats, especially Erviculam National Park. We will understand about this particular species and the threats that this species has been facing. So followed by that, recently Supreme Court has come up with its judgment on electronic voting machines and the VVPAT machines as well. So we will also understand what exactly the Supreme Court's opinion on the electronic voting machines and the voter verifiable paper audit trial. And after that, so we will also understand another important article, so that is with respect to the solar energy. So recently one important study or report suggests that the solar intensity or solar energy that is being used for producing energy has been constantly declining. That could pose a serious challenges to India's ambitions with respect to generation of solar energy. And after that, we will also understand the public health risks posed by the junk food and the recent food adulteration or high sugar content in Nestle food, and what should be the way forward to deal with those issues which have been impacting the public health of people in India. So we will understand all those relevant news articles in a detailed manner. So before discussing them, let's try to solve one practice question for prelims examination. Yesterday I have given you this practice question. So the question is, State of World Population Report 2024 is actually a report published by which of the following organizations? So options are World Economic Forum, United Nations Population Fund, World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund. See, this is a very easy question and a simple question. So the correct answer for this question is United Nations Population Fund. So it publishes the State of World Population Report 2024. Now, as I have already told you that this State of World Population Report 2024 is published by United Nations Population Fund. Actually, it has published this report with the title Interwoven Lives, Threads of Hope, Ending Inequalities in Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. So this is the title with which the United Nations Population Fund has released the World Population Report 2024. Now, this particular report has highlighted women's sexual and as well as reproductive health and the rights of women. So that has been encompassing the freedom from the torture. So this is a very important right, especially in the backdrop of increasing violence against women. So please understand that the United Nations has rightly recognized a new kind of a pandemic, that is at least 1/3 of the women globally have been facing the violence. So therefore, freedom from violence has been recognized by the State of World Population Report, and right to health, right to privacy, right to education, right to a decent life and discrimination and prohibition are being added or recognized as part of this State of World Population Report. So however, this question, with respect to this particular question, please remember that World Population Report 2024 is published by the United Nations Population Fund. And we have one practice question for today also. So please answer this question in the comment section and I will be providing you the right answer in next lecture. So the question is, Global Forest Watch is an initiative of which of the following organizations? So the organizations given here are option A, Food and Agriculture Organization, option B, World Meteorological Organization, option C, United Nations Environment Program, and option D, World Resources Institute. So please answer this question in the comment section and I'll be providing you the right answer as well in tomorrow's class. And let's start our discussion with a few important news articles that are given in the Hindu newspaper. So the first important news article is with respect to the Nilgiri tar. So this Nilgiri tar is an endemic species. Now what are those endemic species? So endemic species are species which located in a specific ecosystem. For example, if we talk about the Nilgiri tar, it is an endemic species in the Western Ghats in parts of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So therefore this is an endemic species, and this Nilgiri tar is known for the Shola forest, or it lives in the Shola forest of Nilgiris or Western Ghats. However, recently these Shola forests have been facing threat because of the invasive alien species. So these invasive alien species have been wiping out the Shola forests in the Nilgiris or Western Ghats. So therefore the Nilgiri tar, which is primarily dependent on the Shola forests, so since there is a declining ground for a pastoral ground for Nilgiri tar, it has been impacting its population as well. Now in this context, we will understand that the government of Tamil Nadu had a commitment that it wanted to remove the Nilgiri tar. Its scientific name is Nilgiri tragus hylocrius. So this is the scientific name of Nilgiri tar, and Tamil Nadu government has actually resolved to remove Nilgiri tar out of the endangered status of the IUCN Red List. So that is International Union for Conservation of Nature, and this International Union for Conservation of Nature actually categorize species into different classes. If you look at the Nilgiri tar, it is classified or categorized as endangered species. So if I can tell you another example of classification that is being given by IUCN. Now if you can look at Asian elephant. So this Asian elephant is categorized as endangered species by the IUCN Red List, and then the Great Indian Bustard is also categorized as the critically endangered species. Based on the threat perception of species, the IUCN categorize these species into different classes. So thereby we will understand their threat perception, and accordingly we will undertake positive measures for the conservation of those species, thereby protecting them from the extinction. So in a similar way, so IUCN has categorized this Nilgiri tar species as endangered species. However, the Tamil Nadu government has strongly committed to bring the Nilgiri tar out of the endangered status. So therefore, it is planned to conduct a survey of the state animal. Please understand, this Nilgiri tar species is the state animal of Tamil Nadu. So because of that reason, and at the same time its endangered status and its endemic nature and declining or dwindling populations of Nilgiri tar is a crucial concern for the governments across the Western Ghats. So therefore the Tamil Nadu government has decided to conduct a detailed survey on the Nilgiri tar population, thereby undertaking positive measures for the conservation and protection of Nilgiri tar. Now briefly understand what exactly is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. So this is IUCN, as I have already told you that this is International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And what is the role and responsibility of this particular organization? It actually involves in protection, conservation and preservation of nature as well as the natural resources. Please understand, this IUCN is not actually a UN body, rather than it is a non-governmental organization, and this is not a UN body. However, the overall purpose of the International Union for Conservation of Nature is to influence, promote and help societies across the world in conserving the nature. So this is the primary objective or the primary goal of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Now in this context, as I have already told you that this Nilgiri tar is an endangered species. Now after endangered species, if its population further declines, then Nilgiri tar would be categorized as critically endangered species. And then the categorization would be extinct in the wild and then permanently extinct. So this is how the IUCN categorizes different species in different classes in order to understand the threat perception of those species. Now understand this endangered species are species that are actually in a process of a very high risk of extinction. So those species which are classified as endangered species such as Nilgiri tar have been facing the highest threat perception or highest threat of extinction as a result of rapid population decline, from 50 to more than 70% population decline over the last 10 years or 3 generations. And at the same time, the current population size is fewer than the 250 individuals, and other factors will categorize any species as the endangered species by the IUCN. Now, in order to categorize any species, IUCN uses the following criteria. So the criteria is population reduction of species and restricted geographical range of the species, and then small population size and declining population or further dwindling the population, and then very small or restricted population of those species, and extinction probability analysis. Now, if the population of species has been continuously declining, then there is a chance or there is a probability that the species may go extinct in the wild. So this is the criteria, and that is being used by the IUCN in categorizing any species as vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, and extinct. And this is the case with the Nilgiri tar as well. Now, why this Nilgiri tar is in news? What is the reason for Nilgiri tar is in news, or it is asked or it is given in the Hindu? So it is because, as I have already told you, that this species is listed as the endangered species by the IUCN Red List based on the threat perception that this Nilgiri tar has been facing. However, we also have one very important legislation at the domestic level. So that is Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and in fact the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 has 6 different schedules, and each schedule places different animals based on their threat perception. Now if you look at the Nilgiri tar, it is placed on the schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. So that essentially means that the Nilgiri tar has been facing the highest threat perception. So when it is placed in the schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, so it would receive one of the highest protection against poaching or habitat destruction. So it receives one of the highest protection since it is placed in the schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So top predators like tiger, Asiatic lion, so will also be placed, or they are also placed in the schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. Now if you look at the populations of Nilgiri tar, so it is said that there were around 3000 tars in the Western Ghats, and according to a report which is being released by World Wildlife Fund in 2015. So this is a 2015 report, and that report says there are around 3000 tar populations in Western Ghats. And also understand, out of 3000 tar population, Nilgiri tar population, a sizable population of these tars are located in the Annamalai Tiger Reserve. Now you can clearly see this Annamalai Tiger Reserve, which is located in the state of Kerala. So please understand, also identify all the national parks and biosphere reserves, because they also very important for your examination. And not just understand, identify those national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, but also recognize the rivers which have been passing through those national parks, because UPSC has already asked about the national parks and the rivers which are being flowing through these national parks. In 2020, the Nature Conservation Foundation actually found that around 510 individuals in the Annamalai Tiger Reserve. Okay, so out of 3000 species, it is observed that 510 species of Nilgiri tar are found in the Annamalai Tiger Reserve. In fact, it has been hosting the second largest population of Nilgiri Tar species after the Erviculam National Park in Kerala. So you can clearly see that the Erviculam National Park is also located somewhere in Kerala. So therefore, Annamalai Tiger Reserve and Erviculam National Park are actually contributing together to largest populations of Nilgiri Tar. And in fact, this Nilgiri Tar is an endemic species, so which lives in the Nilgiris or Nilgiri Hills. So Nilgiri Hills are located primarily in this area or in this area, sorry. Okay, so they are located in the border of Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So Nilgiri Tar are also located in this Nilgiri mountain ranges that is exactly at the southern portion of Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Also understand that UPSC has already asked a question that the meeting point of Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats is a Satyamangalam Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, or Satyamangalam Biosphere Reserve is the place where Eastern Ghats and the Western Ghats meet together. Okay, so it is the only species of genus Nilgiri tragus, and it is closely related to the sheep of the genus Ovis. Okay, so these are some details with respect to the Nilgiri Tar species and the threats that it has been facing. So the next important news article is with respect to the electronic voting machines. So recently the Supreme Court, recently a petition was filed in the Supreme Court with respect to the electronic voting machines as well as the voter verifiable paper audit trials. So please understand, we are up to the 18th Lok Sabha elections or general elections that are conducted by the Election Commission of India in a phased manner. So recently a petition was filed in the Supreme Court about the tampering of EVMs and the allegations that are leveled against the authenticity or legitimacy of the electronic voting machine as as a mode of recording votes. However, the petitioners have also asked for the return to the ballot or paper ballot system of voting. So this paper ballot system of voting would take a lot of time to register, or voting of paper ballot would take a lot of time even for the purpose of counting also. So however, Supreme Court has expressed its optimism, and Supreme Court has also said that the electronic voting machines are legitimate. Even though the electronic voting machines are legitimate, people have raised concerns with respect to the voter verifiable paper audit trial, that people don't have the awareness about the VVPAT machines, and the Supreme Court should also order the Election Commission of India to match votes in the EVM machines as well as the slips in the VVPAT machines in all assembly constituencies or in all polling stations. Now please understand, if I can provide you a brief example about this. Imagine a Lok Sabha constituency, and in this Lok Sabha constituency there are around 100 polling stations to cast votes. Now in this 100 polling stations there will be 100 EVMs dispatched along with the 100 VVPAT machines. Now at the end of the poll, the votes in 5 EVMs and 5 voter verifiable paper audit trial machines would be matched to make sure that the votes are EVMs are not actually malfunctioning. Okay, so the entire electoral process is fair. So this is how the Election Commission of India usually match the voter verifiable paper audit trial with the electronic voting machines. However, the petitioners have also been arguing that if there are 100 polling stations and 100 EVMs, then all 100 VVPAT machine votes should be matched with the all 100 EVMs to make the voting process more foolproof and at the same time further enhance the trust and confidence of the common people. Now we'll understand this context of this article. So the context is that Supreme Court recently rejected the demand for the 100% verification of the paper trail. So that is being left by votes cast through the electronic voting machines. And this particular rejection by the Supreme Court has actually sparked the debate over the overall integrity of the electoral process. So this is actually the context of this particular editorial that was given. Now, how we can uphold the integrity of the electoral process? Now, in order to uphold the integrity of electoral process, we make sure, or the Election Commission of India must ensure the elections are conducted in a free and fair manner throughout the country. So this free and fair elections are actually the crux of the democratic governance or democracy in India. However, recently the Supreme Court has rejected the petition that has been saying that either we should go back to the paper ballot system, we should not use electronic voting machines, because there were allegations of the electronic voting machines are malfunctioning, and there were allegations by the political parties including the Congress party that the EVM machines were recording votes in favor of the ruling Bharatiya Janata party. So therefore, in order to ensure the integrity of the voting process and in order to ensure the trust and the confidence of the normal voters or the general voters, so the petition was filed that we should go back to the paper ballot, and at the same time, even if we use electronic voting machines, all the electronic voting machines should be matched with all VVPAT machines throughout all the constituencies. However, the Supreme Court has actually rejected the petition, and in fact the Supreme Court has also reaffirmed its faith in the integrity of electoral process. So integrity in the electoral process actually means that the Election Commission of India has actually been playing an instrumental role in conducting free and fair elections, and we should not doubt the integrity of Election Commission of India in conducting free and fair elections, and this is what the Supreme Court has actually opined about, particularly with respect to the VVPAT system or voter verifiable paper audit trail system. And the other thing is that vote accuracy is the key issue with respect to the VVPAT machines. Now, how these VVPAT machines actually work, I will tell you that. Imagine that this is a EVM machine, and beside the EVM machine a small box would be placed, and if you cast your vote to one particular party with a symbol and the name of the candidate, this VVPAT machine would show a slip for 7 seconds, and this slip would display the name of the candidate that you have voted and also the symbol of the candidate. However, the voter cannot access this slip, and this slip is displayed for 7 seconds, and after that the slip automatically drops into a drop box. Okay, so this is to ensure the accuracy of the vote, and at the same time the normal voter can confirm himself that the vote that he has voted to a candidate is actually casted to a right candidate. However, the petition has been arguing that all VVPAT slips that are in this box and EVM machine votes should be matched across all the constituencies and all polling stations. So however, it creates a lot of burden with respect to the Election Commission of India, and it could also delay the declaration of results on the part of the Election Commission of India. So however, please understand, if you look at the previous rulings of the Supreme Court, so they have been emphasized on the indispensability of a paper trail for ensuring free and fair elections. And this essentially means that the previous judgments of the Supreme Court have highlighted the need for the VVPAT machines to ensure their vote accuracy, to confirm the voters that they voted the right person. And it has been highlighting the importance of addressing the voter apprehensions regarding the vote accuracy when they have cast votes in the EVM machine. See, please also understand, earlier there were no such VVPAT machines, but only the EVM machines are available in the polling stations. So since apprehensions regarding EVMs have been growing, the Election Commission of India has introduced the VVPAT machines to ensure the vote accuracy. And in fact, the Supreme Court has also upheld the setting of VVPAT machines to ensure the vote accuracy. After that, there will be no interference in the functioning of the Election Commission of India, because Election Commission of India is foolproof organization and it has all the ability to conduct free and fair elections in India, and that is what the Supreme Court of India has opined that. So because there were demands of increased verification of this EVM votes and the paper verifiable paper audit trail votes, so the court has consistently declined to interfere. So we don't want to interfere with the existing system, because the administrative and technical safeguards that mitigate the concerns of tampering. Okay, so this essentially means that the court is fully confident about the Election Commission of India and the way it conduct elections. Now on this image you can clearly see, in order to conduct free and fair elections, certain reforms must be undertaken with respect to the election process in India. Okay, so for example, we must curb the issue of black money entering into the elections, and for that the electoral bonds can be one of the instrument. But recently the Supreme Court has also scrapped the electoral bond scheme, and after that all political parties have equal access to media. So that essentially means that every candidate or every political party must have a level playing field. So the ruling party should not have the advantage over the other political parties. This essentially means that we are living in a democracy, and in democracy every political party must have the equal access to media. And after that we should also regulate the misuse of media by the ruling parties. The ruling parties have been misusing the media, and that has been disturbing the level playing field that is being provided to different political parties. So therefore we must regulate the misuse of media. So after that we must regulate the internal functioning of the parties, and internal functioning of the parties must be on the democratic lines, or internal democracy of these political parties must be encouraged. And after that the political parties must be kept under the purview of the Right to Information Act, and we must implement the right to reject and right to recall as well, and bring down the lower age limit to contest elections to 21 years of age. So these were some of the electoral reforms to conduct free and fair elections. So however, in order to overcome all the challenges that are being faced, or allegations that are being leveled against the EVMs and the VVPAT machines with respect to conducting elections, especially free and fair elections, so there are certain technological advancements and transparency are actually necessary. So what are the concerns here? So the concerns are with respect to the introduction of VVPAT system, and the overall objective of introducing such a VVPAT system is to enhance transparency and also address the voter suspicions, because earlier with respect to EVMs the voters don't know about the accuracy of these EVM machines, and there were also allegations of malpractice within the working or functioning of these EVM machines. So therefore, the VVPAT machines were introduced to enhance the transparency in the electoral process and also address the voter suspicions. But recently, the extent of verification actually remained contentious. Contentious in the sense that, as I've already told you, that not all the VVPAT machines and EVM votes would be matched. Only at few polling stations only the EVM total votes polled in the EVMs and VVPAT machines would be matched. However, the petitioners actually sought that all the VVPAT slips and all the votes polled in a constituency must be matched in order to ensure that the voting process took place in a foolproof manner. And in order to address this, the author has been suggesting there are certain technological advancements which are required to ensure that the verification process is so important, our verification process is so crucial. So see, when we brought in more and more technological advancements in the verification process, that could make the existing voting process more and more legitimate. and that could bolster the public confidence in the electoral system, and it could also mitigate the apprehensions of the manipulation of the votes. And that is what is important when we talk about conducting free and fair elections. And after that, the election watchdog impartiality, that is the Election Commission of India's impartiality, is also a very important, because if Election Commission is not impartial or it is working in a biased manner, that could create a lot of mistrust against the Election Commission of India in the eyes of the common public. So therefore, this could underscores the need for transparent and accountable measures that must be undertaken to ensure the existing voting process is free and fair in manner, and that could also address the apprehensions of manipulating the EVM machines and also ensuring the integrity of the overall electoral process. And this is what the article has been suggesting. So the next important news article is with respect to the solar radiation in India has been constantly declining, because please understand, this solar radiation is a very important, or the constant source of solar radiation is very important to generate viable amounts of solar energy. Since we wanted to significantly reduce our dependence on fossil fuels as a source of fuel, because as I have already told you that the fossil fuels release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere whenever we burn them. Burning fossil fuels release carbon dioxide, and they could increase the global warming or increases the temperatures of earth, and that could further associated with the climate change and rising the global temperatures with negative consequences. So however, in order to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, what we have been doing, we have been depending on the renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources include the solar energy and wind energy. Now solar energy has a huge potential. According to estimates that India could produce around 740 gigawatt of solar energy. So this is India's total solar energy potential per annum. However, the problem here is that according to a report, so that particular report has been suggesting that the solar radiation available for producing power has been gradually falling in India. So there are certain reasons which have been contributing for this thing. Now on this image you can see the insolation of the solar energy, and 20% of the solar energy is reflected back by the clouds, and 6% is reflected by the atmosphere, and remaining reflected by the surface, and 51% is absorbed by the surface, and 19% is absorbed by the atmosphere and clouds. Now please understand the context of this particular article. So the quantity of solar radiation so that is available, that can be economically converted into the converted by the solar panels into electricity, is actually showing an alarming decreasing trend in several locations across India. So therefore, if the solar radiation and its intensity continues to decline, then that could create a serious challenge with respect to the generation of viable solar energy. So therefore, in this context, it is particularly challenging for us to deal with this issue. Now please understand, what exactly is the solar energy? Solar energy is often called as the solar resource or the sunlight. So this is just a common sunlight, and it is being the general term. The solar radiation is the general term, so that is being used for the electromagnetic radiation that is emitted by the sun. Okay, so solar radiation is the electromagnetic radiation that is being emitted by the sun. Now what are the major factors which has been causing the reduction in the solar radiation? So there were a number of factors which have been contributing for this. So those factors include increased aerosol load. Now there are suspended aerosols in the atmosphere, and in case if the aerosol load has been increased in the atmosphere, that could also contribute to the increased absorption of the sunlight, or sunlight would be emitted back into the atmosphere. So these fine particles from the carbon emissions such as burning fossil fuels and dust have actually are said to be the causative factors for reducing the solar energy or reducing the solar radiation coming onto the surface of the planet. Now, if the solar insolation or solar radiation is lesser, the surface of the earth has been getting a lesser solar radiation, so then that could certainly reduce the potential to produce solar energy. How the aerosols contribute to the declining solar radiation? So these aerosols actually absorb this sunlight. So they absorb sunlight and then they deflect it away from the ground. So for example, imagine that all these are aerosols and which are being suspended over the atmosphere, and this is the land surface. And if solar insolation falls on these aerosols, so these aerosols absorb the solar insolation and then they could reflect back this sunlight or solar radiation back into the space. And what about the solar panels which are placed on the surface of the earth? So then the solar insolation would not reach the solar panels, then these solar panels would not be able to generate or produce enough electricity. So this is how these aerosols actually deflect the solar radiation away from the ground, and they can also precipitate the formation of dense clouds that again block the surface. Now for example, from the sun, the solar insolation takes or reaches the surface of the earth. So these aerosols very often also responsible for the formation of thick clouds over the atmosphere, and these thick clouds also either absorb or reflect back the insolation and again reducing the capacity of the solar panels on the ground to produce more electricity or more energy. So therefore the efficiency of these solar panels are significantly influenced by the amount of sunlight falling on them, and they could also generate a lesser levels of solar energy. However, we have to understand the solar photovoltaic potential in this context. So this solar photovoltaic potential is actually the amount of radiation that may be practically available to be converted to electricity by these panels. Okay, so for example, imagine that we have these solar panels, and these solar panels require a certain amount of solar insolation from the surface of the from earth. Okay, so the amount of solar radiation that is required to convert this solar energy into electricity is actually known as the solar photovoltaic potential. However, these aerosols or suspended aerosol particles have been reducing the solar photovoltaic potential by reducing the solar insolation. How it has registered a general decline? It is because of the suspended aerosols that are being released from the burning of fossil fuels. And this report has also suggested that the solar photovoltaic potential has showed a declining trend in major cities including Ahmedabad, Chennai, Goa, Jodhpur, Kolkata, Mumbai, Nagpur. In all those cities, the solar photovoltaic potential has been showed a declining trend. And in fact, India has also established largest solar parks. So the objective of these solar parks to generate a huge amounts of solar energy or convert the solar radiation into the electricity, because this is a renewable form of energy and that doesn't come up with any emissions into the atmosphere. So in fact, these solar parks located in the northwestern part of country, particularly states like Gujarat and Rajasthan, and cities in both the states are also showing the decline or decreasing solar photovoltaic potential. And imagine that we have set up a large solar parks and suddenly the solar photovoltaic capacity has been declining, then we will not be able to generate enough levels of solar energy from these panels, and at the same time the efficiency of these solar panels would also gets impacted. Okay, so thereby over a period of time the production of solar energy from these panels would be economically unviable, and that could impact the overall progress of India with respect to the solar energy production. And in fact, if you look at India's total solar energy installation, it is 81 gigawatt, and that is 1 gigawatt is equals to 1000 megawatt, or the total solar energy production is about 17% of the total installed electricity in India. And in fact, India is the fourth largest country in the world to produce electricity through the solar radiation. So in this context, what should be the way forward? The solar photovoltaic potential has been gradually declining. However, what we must do in this particular context? So first and foremost thing is that we have to install a more efficient solar panels, and these solar panels actually counter the alarming situation of reducing solar radiation. However, please understand one challenge here. The more efficient solar panels would be capital intensive in nature, and at the same time it is not possible to replace existing solar panels with the high capital intensive and more efficient solar panels. So therefore it could continues to pose new challenges for the solar energy generation and the capacity. And in fact, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced the Panchamrit commitments, and he had announced 5 goals as part of the Panchamrit commitments. So one such goal was sourcing around 500 gigawatt of electricity or energy requirements from the non-fossil fuel sources such as solar energy, wind energy. However, lion's share of this 500 gigawatt contributed by the both wind energy and solar energy. So therefore in this context we must address this particular issue, and we must generate more and more electricity through the solar radiation. So this effectively means that at least 280 gigawatt of electricity must be produced from the solar radiation by 2030. However, at least 40 gigawatt of solar capacity being added annually until the 2030. And at the same time, recently Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced one important and ambitious scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya Yojana, where that particular scheme would promote the individual solar panel mounting on the rooftops and generating solar energy or solar electricity by around 1 crore houses across the country. So it is expected that all these programs or initiatives taken up by the government would result the positive outcomes in the near future. However, we must address the declining solar photovoltaic potential in this context. So the next important news article is with respect to the public health concerns and the recent food related issues that were taken up by the Supreme Court and even the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Okay, so we all knew that recently Nestle India has actually brings our focus into the dubious practices of global food industry and its utter disregard for the health of the poor countries, especially in South Asia. Okay, so what was the context of this particular article? So the context is that the discovery of high sugar content in Nestle baby food products which are being sold in India has raised a lot of concerns about the global food industry practices and their impact on the public health. Now, what was the issue? So I've given the issue in this image. So reports actually suggest that Nestle is using the added sugars in the Indian baby foods. And in fact, the global report has also highlighted the sugar content in Nestle baby food has been showing disparities across different regions. So higher sugar levels are found in poor countries such as South Asian countries, African countries and Latin American countries. So this is utter disregard of this global food industry towards the poor and underdeveloped countries. And in fact, the World Health Organization has also cautions against introducing added sugars before the age of 2. And at the same time, the Cerelac sugar levels vary by market to market. because as I've already told you that in European markets the sugar levels are within the permissible quantity, and that will not harm the children. But on the other hand, in these poor countries, they have added higher sugar or artificial sugars, and that could threaten the health of the kids. And in fact, Nestle India has asserts that it complied with the codex standards. Okay, now understand how it could impact the health of the people, right? So dubious practices and consumer awareness in this context, right? So this Nestle baby food brands which are sold in India were found to contain the higher levels of added sugar and higher levels of honey as well. Okay, so that is being contrasted with the sugar-free options which are available in the European markets. However, it has also raised several public health concerns. So public health concerns in the sense that the disparity in sugar content that is being between the products which are marketed in low income and middle income countries, because in poor, underdeveloped and developing countries they have added a higher sugar content, but on the other hand it is not the case with the developed countries and European countries. So therefore it shows that the food industry's utter disregard for the public health concerns in these poor countries. And after that, the public awareness actually plays a very important role here, because a public are being aware about these food industry, junk food. They can make informed decisions with respect to the nutritious foods that are being given to the children, and at the same time accurate information about the ingredients and food products. And this is very important in this context. So however, what will be the health implications of Nestle India food higher sugar content, and what should be the regulatory oversight in this context? So high sugar consumption among children, especially among children below 2 years, actually have it comes up with a lot of risks, or it is associated with a lot of problems. So they include the tooth decay and poor nutrient intake. So in fact, these sugary foods often replace the healthier options in the children's diet. So apart from that, the World Health Organization has also published guidelines with respect to the sugar content in the baby food, especially the infant below the 2 years of age. So in fact, the World Health Organization has advocated against sugar in food, especially the food of children under 3 years of age, emphasizing on the importance of a stringent regulatory oversight over the food industry, because now this is adulterated food, and that has been posing a serious risks to the public health, especially the health of the children. So therefore it has to be dealt severely. So in order to deal with that, we must strengthen the enforcement strategies by food regulators. For example, if you look at in India, there's a food regulator called Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. So therefore it is imperative to ensure the compliance with healthy guidelines or health guidelines and protect consumers from the harmful dietary practices. So this is very important. And that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button so that we can come up with more and more such initiatives. And thank you so much. Please answer the question in the comment section. Thank you.